Yeah, I think it's fine to get started. I can fill them in on anything.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for coming together for this meeting. I feel like there's so much I wanted to talk about. I had a really hard time actually. You wouldn't believe how much trouble I had trying to fit it all into buckets and make it so that it would be tangible and something that we can all sink our teeth into. It feels like now with just 3 weeks, 4 weeks left, 3.5 weeks left of me full time, I'm starting to go, what's left? So that's a big part of this meeting, is like, this is about the transition, but also just really it's yours to take. It's gonna take all of us, all of you all, to bring this to the next stage so that it works for your programs and works for our region and for master recyclers. And so I put together a little PowerPoint presentation, not such much presentation as it's really to be conversational, but just to keep all of the thoughts that I want to try to share in some tangible, visible way. I'm very visual, so it helps me. Hopefully it will help you. I usually love to do introductions, but I want to get going, and I know you all know each other. Is there anybody that doesn't know anybody? I should say that. Yeah, okay. Come on, I'm trying to get it so I can see you all again. Hold on a minute. Can you all see my PowerPoint? Yes, okay. Now I'm trying to make it so my settings are so that I can see all of you, and then we'll be able to, there we go. So it's your Metro Community Area Volunteer Program, and we are going through transitions. And so how can we make it through this bumpy time, but also build on the great work that's been happening and can happen. So my goals for today, and yes, it's a lot, is to talk about the specific transitions that are happening like now and through the summer, and make sure that you all feel like your needs are going to be met, because yes, we picked the busiest time of year to make this transition happen. Why is the fiscal year on top of events year? I don't know, but that's part of the year. But so we'll talk about the transitions and where we are, what's going, and how you can play a role. The onboarding of the new person, again, where we are, where we're going, and how you can play a role. And then having more of a meaty look at, or tofu-y look at the ways that we can look at this transition. Yes, roles are slightly going to change. We're moving from a jurisdiction to a regional government for the Master Recycle Program. There's been voiced concern about how do we make sure that the grassroots feel that we have for the program continue and even grow and do better at being really like integrated part of the program. And so how do we build on the foundation of collaboration as it moves to a regional program and still keep that and do more with it, especially as community design is also involved and community partners have shifted with that. And then finally, I did do a lot of epic research in the last 3-4 months. And I want to share back what some of the biggest lessons learned on that research, and also I think it ties very closely to the building on the foundation collaboration piece, and what are some of the buckets of work that you all could look at as things that would make it so that this tool of diversity and engagement and outreach for your goals is the best tool that you can have. So does that sound like a lot, but something that we can chew on today? Is there something people are like, wait, I really felt like this needed to happen? Okay, good. So
Lauren, I'm seeing sorry, this is Darwin. I'm seeing a hand up from Genevieve.
Oh, thank you. That's weird. It came up as just weird words. Genevieve, where are you? Yeah.
Hey, Hey, thanks, Lauren. I just wanted to see if you're gonna if we're gonna have some opportunity for Q&A, like where some of our heads are around, like, this is a question that I want to ask Lauren and have, available for all the group to benefit from.
Yes, absolutely. I have several stopping points, not just
Great.
for Q&A, but for discussion. This is, yeah, I know
Awesome.
when I make it a PowerPoint, it seems like I'm just going to do all the talking, but yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I do want this to be discussion in places, but I have a lot that I need to download in order for that conversation to be kind of where I'm at, because you don't all live and breathe where when I'm living and breathing, and I need to get you to that space first, I think. So we're not covering stuff that's already been covered. Does that sound right, Genevieve? Thanks for checking that. So the transitions, yes, that not to make your heart beat as fast as mine is, but that June 30 is really getting big in my vision. It's happening fast, and luckily we have an amazing team at Metro that I've been working with to start making those changes start to happen and starting to set up a place for the new program and the new program coordinator. So I'm super excited. Hans isn't here until later on in the meeting, but we do now finally have administrative support again. We haven't since COVID started 2 years ago, not because of COVID, but because the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability had shifted the position that was our admin support, and it was okay with me because it was COVID and there wasn't much going on. But now we're back up into crazy times, and I'm trying to be both Wing or Harmony and the Master Recycle Program Coordinator. And so I'm super excited that Hans will be taking the reins and spending between 25 and 50% of his time. We're not entirely sure. We're still looking at the time buckets, but on admin support for Master Recycle Program. Yay, you get your program support back. Also, Metro has identified the manager. Yay, Darwin, I'm so pleased that the program is in your hands. It's been an incredible ride that we've been on together, especially in community design and in the work on your team around outreach and education and bringing it to adult learning. I just think it's just the right place for the program. And I think that your big questions about how does education and like really getting in and ongoing relationship building and real change action kind of thing, how do you combine those two is exactly what the Master Recycler Program and community design is about too. And so we're just all asking the same questions, and it's just such a great spot for the Master Recycler Program at Metro. So yay, I think that makes me really happy. So then we have been just doing all the technical moving, just trying to figure out we are going to still be able to keep the Master Recycler website as is and in Squarespace. So it won't have to be under Metro's umbrella, or it'll be something that we all get to feed into all the time and super live all the time, like it is with the volunteer opportunities. So that's good news. We'll still have all of the tools that we have with SurveyMonkey for quizzes, and everything seems to be all moving intact to the new location. So the work that we do and the way that we do it is not going to drop or change, at least in this time period, unless you all decide let's do that in future time periods. So I am set the goal to get you all the data that you all need for your annual reports, as I always do, but it'll be probably missing some hours in that last week of June, because usually I ask that I get grace period into the middle of July so that Master Recyclers report their hours late. So some of the data may be a little short, but you are going to get your data that you always need for your reporting. And then, yes, I am staying on for the summer, but not at this level at all. You know, that I'm definitely looking at blocks of time I'm going out of town, but my two major priority areas that I'll be staying on to support is hiring the new person, being involved with the activities around hiring that person, and then keeping all your volunteer opportunities in front of master recyclers and continuing to make it so that all stays live and engaged, so that you don't lose ground on this important momentum we've been trying to build in a new event season after 2 years of stagnation. So I'll be taking master recycler hours. I'll be asking you all, keep your hour, keep your calendar up to date, all that stuff that I've been doing. I will try to do all that in once a week. Yeah. So, and please come. BPS is kind enough to be planning a retirement gathering for me. I very much appreciate that. And it's going to be at Mount Tabor on July 8th at 3 p.m. Master Cyclers, partners, everybody's invited to come. It's just a big party, and I'm not very good at being the center of conversation, but so please do come to that. Are there questions about that? And I'm seeing, oh, you bet I'll be there, barring a recycling emergency. Yes, thank you, Ricardo. The next slide is.
I have a quick question, Lauren. Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
In terms of moving tools and things, does that include the database? Can you talk about that a little bit, and like how that, like if we want data, do we go to Hans?
No, well, I'll be around too once a week. I'll be checking email, but yeah, data. And I also want to get you all the most fresh list of contacts before I go on June 30th. I'll send you each. If you don't get that from me by June 30th, like in that last week, ping me because it is on my checklist. But I want to make sure you have the most fresh data, because there have been a lot of email bounce backs and master cyclists moving around. So I want to make sure you have the best contact information before I go. But any data yes, Hans will be trained on how to use the database, and I also will be checking into email. The Master Recycler email box will change to Master Recycler OregonMetro.gov. So there's going to have to be some big announcements. There will be a bounce back from PortlandOregon.gov for a while. We're working on seeing if we can keep the same phone number, but that may be complicated. And it's, that cell phone is so spammed all the time, it might be no favor to the new person anyways. So good. Anything else on that logistics thing? Yeah, please ask as they come along to you. So speaking of logistics, the next slide is about the hiring timeline. And you can see from this timeline why I have to stay through the summer. We're just really not, it's really, if we're really lucky, we'll be able to make an offer on August 5th. And who knows if that person will need to give notice. And so it may be mid or late August that we'll actually have bird in hand. And so we need to be aware of that this summer is going to be some time between program coordinators. And so before I get into some of how we're going to deal with that training of that person, I just want to go through some of the opportunities that you all can play a role in helping get this person on board and getting our best candidate. And so I've already sent out the job announcement, and some of you replied back with some good feedback on some changes. And then we're working on an announcement. I mean, that was the job description. The announcement is almost done. And that if you want to see ahead of time, we'll try to get it to you, but it'll be based on mostly the job description that you've all seen already. Because the timeline's tight, let me know. I guess we'll send it out, but we'll be like, we need to look for it, and we respond right back because it is going to be pretty tight. So then will have this week, I'm in the process of writing up my recommendations to Metro of who can be on 3 review committees. So if you're interested in any of these committees, please let me know. I would love to hear from you. And if you think you're not the right person, but somebody on your team is the right person, let me know that person too. So the 3 committees are the application review committee. So you're like taking in all the applications or resumes and scoring them. And then that makes it so that we can weight them and decide who's going to get interviews. So that's one committee. And the nice thing about that is it's spread out over time. You get to pick the time that you allot to looking at that stuff. And then and that time period is on here on the calendar. It's kind of spread out because we'll start getting applications in. It'll be there'll be a training of the committee sometime during this week, and then applications will come in through to July 8th. So then the next one is a round of interviews. First round is the July 18th to the 22nd. And then final interviews is 25th through 5th. Now there may be like, oh my gosh, we still don't know. We may do some kind of other round where it's, we have people do presentations, or we might do something crazy to try to make it so we can really tease out what we're not knowing, but we also want to keep with a good timeline. So who knows if there'll be another round, but that's kind of what we're looking at right now. And then hopefully making an offer on July 25th through 5th kind of ish. So any questions on I skipped a whole bunch of steps that Metro has on their timeline, but I don't think it's relevant to this group, but maybe you have questions that will tease that out. So obviously one of the biggest roles all of you have is that during the open recruitment, getting the word out. And, that's really going to be the number one way that master recyclers hear about the Master Recycler program is through fellow Master Recyclers. And the number 2 way is the local jurisdiction tools that you all use. And so obviously that's what we should use to recruit the Master Recycler program manager too. So use all your diversity outreach tools, get the word out so that we can get a really good, robust list of candidates. Okay, no questions on that? No, okay. This was what I was living for, was this timeline. So maybe it's just because it answers it for you.
No, I have a question. Just what would be like? How many people are you looking for on these committees? Like 5 or 4 or 6, or do you know?
Yeah, I think that Darwin, maybe you can speak to that. What's more the culture in Metro for that?
Yeah, I think we're thinking 4 or 5 around there. It's kind of what we've seen. And then we kind of did the math at one of our meetings with Laura Norris of like what would that mean? Like, are we able to include some Metro folks on that, some local government folks, some community folks, whether they're master recyclers, MROC members, CBOs, folks from CBOs that we partner with. So it might be 5 or 6 for some of those, depending on the names.
And one of the things that I'm really thinking about also is just, when you say local jurisdiction, I think it's important for us to like spread that out a little bit, even because there's you all on the ground, and then there's the directors. And I think that it's important for both to play some role. So it may be I'm kind of looking at like who might be good fits. And I also like to think about what the candidate learns from who's on the panel, and what they learn about the program. And so if they're seeing solid waste and recycling directors, they're seeing diversity, they're seeing people on the ground that they're going to work with, it's going to give them better information about who they work with and what they do. And so, trying to show a variety in those interviews also is kind of some of the things that help me think about who should be on which committees. And yeah. Sound good? Okay, thanks. Yeah, shoot me an email like ASAP if you're interested, or who on your team you'd like to see or whatever. So yeah, Genevieve.
I was just gonna say, I'm assuming that most of the interviews would be virtual.
Yes. This strange virtual interview world that we're in. Ricardo?
Lauren, I think my hard drive is full because I don't remember reading the stuff. But I was wondering, is there an academic requirement in the application?
So that's actually something we're playing with the announcement, is that there's some pieces that are not requirements, but recommendations. I can't remember exactly how the wording is, but we're actually toying with some language that has been used in, especially BPS has been having some very strong language that says, please don't filter yourself out, because you know, that's a traditional thing that people of color tend to do, is filter themselves out because of these, you know, these requirements. If you feel like you have something equivalent, please apply kind of language. So it's really directly speaks to it. And the other thing is that we're putting language as another big piece to that. You know, that Spanish would be a very strong asset for people to have. But we also look at.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about in my situation, we have the bouncers or the goalkeepers from HR, so they are the ones who see that, and they don't transfer that to the hiring department sometimes, because they do the first filtering without having that intention, and so sometimes we lose some very worthy candidates because of some detail that HR decided, well, it's not here, so why bother?
Yeah, absolutely right. Darwin, you look like you have something to speak to that.
Yeah, great description, the bouncers, Megan's comment. Yeah, we talked about that, Ricardo, at a prior kind of transition planning meeting. And luckily at Metro, we do have the ability to go back and say, hey, HR, can we take a look at some of the folks that didn't make it through your screening? And then the only caveat there is, say if someone got ranked, just to throw out a number, like a 35 by HR and they didn't make it, and we wanted them to go through, they would have to let through and anyone else who scored that same number or higher, which makes sense. But we do have that ability. I know some of my colleagues who are managers, hiring managers, have done that before. Yeah, so hopefully that helps answer that. And then the other thing I wanted to say with the interviews being virtual, in WPES in our department, we've been sending out, it's been pretty customary to send out the questions like 24 hours in advance, if not a little more, which I think is absolutely helpful, especially if, you know, we're coming up with like 8 questions that there's like 3 questions embedded in each, or 13 total questions, or whatever it is, right? This is not a test on like, can you tap dance on the spot, right? It should really be giving people a chance to come prepared. So those are some of the things we're thinking of.
Yeah, and my memory's a little fuzzy about what we did ultimately put on paper for that that question that you're asking specifically, Ricardo. I'll go back and resend the job description. Actually, I think what I'll do is wait until we have also the announcement and try to get them both out to you as quickly as possible, so that we can, so if there's any red flags, we can quickly respond to them. Okay, yeah, good. Thank you. Absolutely important questions you're asking. Okay, so that's the hiring. And unfortunately they're starting like 2.5 months after I'm fully gone. And so what are we going to do to get those folks on board? So I'm doing a lot of one-on-one meetings with Hans to make sure that the administrative piece is all on board and he's actually practicing it before I even leave. So that part will help a lot in getting some of the institutional knowledge piece connected. And then, whoops, I hit a stop instead of next. Yeah, try this again. Hit click anywhere but there. Oh, I forgot to click that when I was going to ask you what do you want to play. So here's I think that we've all been really excited about the amazing growth, especially with the community design work, and the stuff that's happening on the regional level with the 2030 vision, and expecting a lot from the Master Recycler program, but it's about to go through a major transition. And so, or maybe not, but I think we need to keep that in mind. And when we're thinking about big picture, all the work that we're doing. And I want us to kind of let this person get their legs on, and so here are some what I think is a good year for them to take on, and ways to transition them during the August, hopefully, and not September. I'll be doing some really intensive one-on-one conversations with them to get them on board, and I'm also working on a lot of documents that they'll be able to read and understand, some of these major goals of the program and the process. I'm also actually been working with Washington and Beaverton to set up the Washington County class. And that's actually how I started. 3 days after I started my job, I was running the Master Recycler class, right, Genevieve? She was in my class. And it's, back then, the speakers did all the work. All I did was remind them to come and make sure that there was AV equipment and a room. And so it was really good training for me, because I actually got all the content I needed. I didn't know anything about solid waste and recycling. And so I'm kind of going to bring the Master Recycler class back to that level for this fall class, where it's much more other presenters and not the Master Recycler program coordinator teaching the class, so that they get a chance to learn the content before they have to teach it, right? Depending on who the person is. So I'm going to actually ask, the speakers schedule it all ahead of time. If the new person comes on board and they're like, already really know a lot, maybe we can make some shifts, but I just want to make sure that they get an opportunity, just get used to running a class, and not also trying to do presentations and things like that. I'm also recommending that we just stick to the 3 county classes for this year, and that we move classes to 7 weeks instead of 8 weeks. And I actually think we should do that from now on. It's a lot of your life dedicated to the Master Recycler program and the classes, when it's 8 weeks, and 3 times 3. And I've been really looking at the class schedule, and I think that a lot of it was me, doing like an hour-and-a-half presentation or workshop on behavior change, which is not, that's not going to be something necessarily that the next person is going to train on for a while. So they can expand it later if they want back to an 8-week, but at least this first year, I suggest 7 weeks. And even the next year when they're trying to get used to also adding, I think this will make more room for community design classes, is the other reason why I think we should drop it to 7 weeks instead of 8. Almost all the community design classes have been 7 weeks. All of them have been, because we feel like the communities they've been serving just would, 8 weeks is a lot. And so I think that should be true for the standard class too, because we want a diverse group of people in that class. So that's one key thing that I'm looking at. And then spending really the rest of the hours that the Master Recycler program focuses on Master Recyclers, being very Master Recycler centered. Get to know all the little eddies. There's so many eddies of Master Recyclers and all the millions of little projects they do. There's the West Side Master Recyclers. There's the new Spanish language club down in Clackamas County. There's so many little eddies of Master Recyclers out there. And I think that the gatherings, just getting to know all those pieces, really having a fall gathering, having a spring tour, just doing the things that we do to continue to serve and engage Master Recyclers, will help the program coordinator get to know them and also keep the Master Recyclers engaged. And then, hi Hans, good to see you, everybody. This is Hans, who I've been telling you I'm so excited to have on board. So thanks so much for joining this team.
Yeah, sorry I was late. I was facilitating in a different meeting, but here I am. And John may be able to join us in a little bit, just so you know. Okay,
Awesome.
I'm done.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
So, and then, meanwhile, just building relationships with you all, with the community design partners and with all the other partners. There's 20 places where master recyclers are placed in the community, like the, Eco Schools Network, Community Warehouse, just understanding all those programs and how they work. And then just really focused on our events and updating the handbook starting in January, and then starting to work with a contractor to get it translated. We have budget for it, so it's finally, I think it's time to get that done. Is there something that you're like, no, this thing cannot fall off the plate that I didn't list?
Lauren, can you just go over, just for the larger group here, the time frames for the 3 classes?
Yeah, so the fall is September, October, and we're starting actually 2 weeks into September instead of the first week, because I'm just really worried about this new person getting on board on time. So the fall for Washington County, and the deadline for that applications is July 28th. So like a good week later, applications for Multnomah County can open. So I'll actually work with Gresham and Portland to identify a location, and open applications for, set the dates, and open applications for Multnomah County class, which will, the applications will stay you, and then you all can this summer do, the end of summer can do outreach to have people come to that. And then in December, it closes again and opens right up again for Clackamas a week later. And so Clackamas will be able to recruit from December to March, and the new person will have to open that up. But I am working, I did send an email to Stacy to set the schedule already and set the dates and the location, so that it's just going to be, all they have to do is open up and start doing outreach for that. So yeah, so it'll be January, February for Multnomah County, April, May for Clackamas. Same kind of schedule we were on until COVID, and go back to it, except for 7 weeks instead of 8. Good. Thanks, Felicia. Okay, so what happens during that with community design? I really did a lot of talking to, and actually I thought Charlotte was going to make it, but she wasn't here today, but really did some good talking with Ricardo and Sergio, and with Sharetta and Trish, and from Red Lodge and Clackamas, and I think this is actually a good year for those groups to be kind of working with the new cohorts that they have. They all 3 just had classes, and how they're really active communities. They're doing a lot. And so I think that the program coordinator's role in working with community design this year should be early on, just getting to know those cohorts, joining and participating in their gatherings and understanding who they are, building relationships with the programs, and then really start to scope with you all and with the community design folks and potential other groups, like what's out there, what could the next 2 to 3 years look like for community design, and what could should it be more formalized, or can it continue in its kind of informal way as we start to try to define what it looks like and how it fits in with other programs that are developing, like Trash for Pieces environmental program and promoters program, and some of the ideas that are happening in Washington County. So just kind of doing some assessment together as a community, all of you, as to what the future looks like for this bulk of work. So again, I think that'll give some breathing room to not try to do, these are the most challenging classes, and they just bring so much, they're the most they also have more resources. You're usually working in a team, but it's just a lot more work. And I think that the new person should just stick with the county classes for the first year. And really, it seems like the community design programs are not really interested or dying to have a class next year anyways. So yeah.
I'm sorry, Lauren, I blinked. Could you repeat that, please?
Say that up.
Could you repeat that?
The last
who
thing?
doesn't have the interest?
Well, I think in this coming year, the even talking to you all in Central Cultural, it was like, you were the ones that I was like, maybe there'll be a class next year. But even that, it was like, that could probably wait, a year and a half before. And, so that was my understanding in my last conversation with you all. But if that's changed, then we could talk about that. But I just don't think this person's going to be able to do all this in their first year, maybe in the late spring. So, but that was what I was understanding, is that there's just a lot going on, and that you all, Washington County, is kind of shifting to some new models as well and thinking about it.
Mhm.
Is that not right, Ricardo?
Well, no. It was the idea of integrating county efforts with the larger master recycler program.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
to not disregard community design programs,
No.
but rather to complement them. So I was like, okay, but yeah, we can talk about that at a later time once that we have someone on board as the master recycling coordinator.
Yeah, exactly. And I just feel like this particular year, getting to know, like, each community design community is so different from each other, and how I interact with them, and how even just the hours reporting and the interaction and communications is so different in each one, that just getting to know how to serve each of those 3 existing communities is going to be an important first step. And so absolutely, I put it as its own slide, because I think it's all important work that needs to be done this year, just not a new class, if that makes sense. Yeah. So this slide, I'm going to say at the beginning, and then I'm going to repeat it at the end, because this is what I'm hoping to pass on to you, is some of the big thoughts that I have from all this research that I've done. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so much great work that I would love to dive into, but I'm going to hand it on. So, we are in the middle of a big regional conversation about how do we all do the work that we do. So, and I think that master recyclers obviously have been a key part of that conversation. And so how do we, in this transition, as a new person comes on board and as the program moves to Metro and we start to wonder how our relationship evolves, do we build on the foundation of collaboration and even grow it, rather than feel like, oh my gosh, I don't trust that we're going to still be this collaborative process, right? How do we just build on it from the beginning? And how do we cook that into the onboarding and transition process? And so one thing that we started with ages ago and kind of dropped off, but I'm really recommending, is that there be regular jurisdiction and community design meetings focused on the master recycler program, and so that you can do some better coordination, but also trainings to the folks who work with master recyclers, and then also developing tools together. And I'll explain some more of this again after you hear some of the research that I have to share. And then these are the bullets I want to talk about at the end. And so that's why it's coming back. And then working on some core issues together, some big bucket questions together in these meetings will be one way to start cooking this collaboration into the transition, and starting to find those buckets of work for the future together. Like, should we have a whole Spanish track? Let's discuss it and how we could make that happen and assess whether we're ready for it. That could be a conversation that you as a group discuss and start to develop together. And then aligning all the other groups that you all are forming after the charrette for the 2030 regional waste plan, how do we make sure that that's better coordinated with the master recycle program and vice versa? Because they seem to go on separate tracks, and I'd like to see how can we be more specifically thoughtful about how those two work together, so that they don't, oh yeah, and now we got to figure out how master recyclers help us with this work, and and how does this work serve the master recycler and community design community. All right, so let me go through the research that brought me to these areas, and then maybe I can clarify that these will be a little bit more clear, and then I want to open it up for a conversation. Does that sound fair? Or is there just one on here that you're like, I don't even know what you mean by that bullet? Okay. Hopefully it'll be more clear. So just going back to, these are the goals. This is a goal statement that I've had for a good 7 years for the Master Recycler program. The mission statement, rebuilding, bridging the gaps between awareness and action by motivating people. Sorry, I'm like trying to see my deeper notes. Forget it. All right, bridging the gap between awareness and action by motivating people in our region to consume materials sustainably. And we do this in 3 ways: by focusing on behavior change, by really addressing the institutional structures that create inequities, and making sure that people of color and low-income communities get to help define what sustainability means and be a part of the solutions. And then contributing to community wealth by building relationships that are meaningful and are mutually beneficial. And that's kind of usually in all my annual reports that I send to you all, that all my goal statements and all my data has gone back to these 3 points. And so those were kind of what I was assessing when I was doing a lot of the research: is, are we meeting these goals in this mission? And I took these different kind of tools to make that assessment. And so I had several meetings with you all early on asking, what do you want to learn from master recyclers? We had the regional charrette. I did individual interviews with you all, and did surveys, and I did a whole bunch of different surveys. So I surveyed people separately without telling them that they were separate. So I had master cyclers who have done no hours, master cyclers who have done some hours, master cyclers who have completed their hours but are not centurions, centurions, mentors, BIPAC, and then Spanish language were the groups of surveys. And so I could kind of compare and contrast master recyclers with the exact same questions. And then I did some focus groups with specific groups to do some deeper conversations. And I also took the interviews that Sergio did with Centro Cultural and were sifted out, and conversations I've had with Ricardo too about feedback from Adelante Mujeres and Centro Cultural. So that is kind of some of the, like, all the different pieces of evaluation that I've been doing for the last 4 months to kind of come up with some of this. And we already had some really great data that we've been collecting all along. I've been doing survey data after each class and asking them how they identify in these areas. So we do know that the master recycler community is quite diverse. We also know how many, we got a lot of data from their hours reports that they provide. And that those hour reports help us inform our regional plan and our goals and our local goals. And so that data has been useful. But I wanted to know more. And these are kind of what I was focusing on. Also, not just me, but you all asked me to integrate these questions in our early meetings on this. So what motivates master recyclers? What sets them up for success? what do they want to do? What kind of activities would keep them engaged and have them be excited? How can we better serve them? And is there a different answer for these questions for different groups of master recyclers? And so I'm going to share back some of what I learned. Key things, these are the highest bullets of what motivates master recyclers to come to the table and participate as a program, and then stay. Like, what gets them excited to come to events, what gets them coming back, what gets them to come to gatherings. And the top two ones that the graded highest was make a difference and gain knowledge. But I'll say that those two shot way up in all of the groups that did not identify as BIPOC. But it was BIPOC, it was much more spread between these. So I think it's really important to realize we need to have all of these here and in order to reach a broader audience and be more inclusive. And also this one was maybe not what they scored highest on, but what they repeated over and over in their testimony and in their focus groups, and was much higher for BIPOC master recyclers. So they really felt it was important to be known in their community as a resource, that is a big part of how they identify as a master recycler. And they said it over and over in so many different places in the survey and the testimony, as well as in places where they could click. Yeah, Ricardo.
Sorry, managing a couple of screens. When they say make a difference, what does it mean? Does it mean, if some of these are already explained here, what does making a difference mean?
Yeah, so that could be like, it was broad. So, it was, I mean, I kind of collapsed some of these into the same category. So some of it meant like actually changing stuff in the environment, actually lowering carbon emissions by getting a school certified. But some of it meant making a difference by bringing a voice to their community. They could click on more than one thing. So some of those collapsed, but it was that sense of that my action made something happen.
Was there anything about affecting change by, like talking to legislators, or was there any government related? Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, for sure. That was not as high, and there's some others, another table on this that I'll talk about that. But yeah, this is kind of more of like the value of what they did, and the activities I'll describe a little bit later. But yes, for sure, being on an advisory committee, speaking in front of, a city council. Those kind of activities are definitely things that they like to do, but not as high as some of the other things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, please ask these clarifying questions. This is information I'm trying to share for you. And I'm actually going to give you all the raw data too. If I need to get it collapsed because they're all in so many different surveys right now, but I will get it to you all so you can, it's actually really heartwarming. The data is just, they love being master recyclers. They love it. And it's just really awesome to read that in all of it and all of the groups, except for the folks who did no hours. Only 4 people replied. That's a really dead list. So they're not part of the program. So yeah.
That's good you tried, Lauren, but that's actually kind of funny too. They didn't.
We actually thought about having master recycler mentors call the deadbeats, and I started looking at the list and I'm like, these people are never going to answer the phone even. They're just gone, let's just write it off. Let's not worry about them.
What percentage are the deadbeats that didn't?
Yeah. I was curious too.
Would you just ask?
What's the percentage of those that don't track hours or very minimal?
So I don't have it right off the top of my head, but it's pretty small. It's like 15%. But the problem is actually the data is always a little off because there's always a class that just graduated. And so there'll always be some percentage of that no hours is about to report some hours. So yeah, it's not entirely nobody. Yeah, entirely dead. Some of them were just getting started is why but they don't stay there very long. I think that there is a certain population that's going to take the class because they want to learn. They just want to take a class. And no matter how many times we tell them that this is a volunteer training and not a workshop that they're taking and then going away, there's going to be people who plan on just taking the class and going away. And that's when I look at the list of people, that's what they look like to me, from because I know the individuals and remember them in the class. But so, yeah. Okay. I see there's a chat. What is that? Oh, love them numbers. Okay, good. So who did they connect with? So this was really fascinating to me. I think it's really important and this was like the list was really changed by how long they've been involved or how deeply they've been involved and how many hours. So like when they first start out, when they come to the program, it's because they already know a master recycler or MAT 1 tabling, or because their local jurisdiction invited them to participate in one of the tools that you all have. And then the relationship shifts to the program coordinator for a while after the class. They feel most connected to the program coordinator. And then as they start getting involved, it shifts, like first tabling, they're all back to getting to know you all and being connected there, or their community design partner. And then as they really get deeper, they become closer to other master recyclers as well as the community that they serve. And that may be the community they already served when they came in. That was one of the things that I was surprised and learned, is that I was asking about all these parts of the program that where they felt connected. And they actually said that becoming a master recycler made them feel more connected to their own community because they were now a stronger resource for them. Those are, I just think, really interesting. And it's important to think about connection because it's you who they're going to come to. It's also the more that we know where the relationships are, the more we can maximize on those relationships and strengthen them. And also if there's lack of relationship, how can we better strengthen them? So I did definitely see with BIPOC folks that the connection to staff was very much lower than with master recyclers who do not identify as BIPOC. So,
Can I
Yeah.
I'm going to try to be funny here, but I don't know if everybody else has this experience, but people don't know what Metro does and what local jurisdictions do. So my joke is that now that this program is moving to Metro, I don't know if that's better or worse for those of us who try to make, help master recycler volunteers understand about the different government stuff and if it matters. Sometimes it matters because they say, well, it's this Metro thing. And I'm like, actually, it's a city of Portland thing. Like there are differences, like they're representing the city, but they think they're representing Metro. And so maybe this is always going to be that way. But with this change, I'm just thinking it's kind of funny. Like maybe that ship has sailed. That will never be clear.
I have to say that almost every time I've told a master recycler that the program is moving to Metro, that their eyes have gone, isn't it already at Metro? Especially the Clackamas and Washington County master recyclers, so yeah, I don't think it necessarily matters, except for when you want them to know where the resources are. And actually they're really interested in knowing what's the right resource for my area. And they actually have it pretty right on. So that's the most important reason why it would be important for them to differentiate it, is that if they're in Clackamas County, they need to know what the phone numbers are for Clackamas for this question versus when they ask Metro, and so and they seem to get that stuff pretty well, because that's a role they feel they own a lot, is finding the right resource for the community that they serve. So yeah, I think they manage that line pretty well, to be honest. So okay, there was something just came up and went away again. No, okay. Help me with that. Okay, so what's important to them? So this is getting deeper into what makes a difference. So these are the topics. The ones on the left are the most important. They weighed heaviest. And I found again that with and I keep saying the people who do not identify as BIPOC, I don't ask every master recycler to tell me how they identify. They have to tell me that they self-identify. And so I don't know for sure that I'm not counting them. I'm not calling them all white. And so, but folks who do not identify as BIPOC, really heavy weight on the recycling, and then love reuse and repair and food waste, and this is in order. But it's much more spread out for BIPOC master recyclers, and Spanish speaking master recyclers. Recycling is actually fourth. It's up, reuse is first, food and toxics, and then recycling. So it's it's not the same for everybody. And so again, I think it's important to have all of these options, because it seems to be more relevant for diverse communities if we keep a really good diverse range of stuff. And I thought it was fascinating that whenever they had the option to click on words that were important to them, 0 master recyclers, and there's 500 people replied to the surveys, and the different surveys, none of them liked the word consumption. They picked recycling, reuse, repair, food waste prevention, but they picked pollution. And one thing that also really changed is when I've surveyed master recyclers in the past, climate change was not something that they wanted to focus on, and it became very high. And same with equity and environmental justice, that those are topics that didn't used to be relevant to master recyclers and are now. So that was good information to have. And so this is there was a lot of conversations in the focus groups about, should we move to energy efficiency and transportation? Not a lot. There was some raising of that question. It seems like West Side was especially asking that question. But most master recyclers felt like it was important when they took the class. They thought that they were going to come and learn whether they can recycle that bottle cap or not. And what they learned was that these are the more important things to learn, and that they thought that nobody else is teaching this. And so they think it's important that the master recycle program stay on these topics. So addressing recycling contamination, but not talking about recycling more. Although some master recyclers are really obsessed with getting people to recycle more. But they acknowledge that they learned in the class that it was important that we think differently. Same with landfills and addressing pollution, diversity and inclusion when it relates to materials, connecting materials to climate, and then really starting to uplift some of these new topics. They're really liking that there's more tangible ways to get involved with waste prevention, and also addressing bulky waste issues and litter has become hot issues, not a surprise to any of us. So any questions on that stuff? So I guess my big recommendation is I think this is a good spot, and that nobody else is working on this stuff. There are other people engaging community on transportation and on energy, but not anybody but us, focusing on materials and especially how they relate to equity and justice and climate. That's important work that we can be continuing to focus on. And just checking the chat. I have just a few more slides, and then I want to open up for conversation. There's so much more data that I'll just share with you guys. You can all just pick apart if you want. But these are the activities. This is especially something you all had named as you want to know exactly what they want to do and what they want to do more of and less of. And if they want to take more of a leadership role and how frequently they want to do these things. So I kind of asked a whole range of questions on what kinds of things would keep them engaged and get them more engaged. Number one thing they really identify is just being the resource in their community. They want to know what tools you have to help keep them and keep their community informed and keep those resources coming to them. They love them and they will get them to the people in their community. They feel that that is their job. And so that's number one thing they love to do. They want to take that leadership role. They want to do it every day. So that's their top thing they love to do. And in that, I think that brings bringing a voice for their community, especially for BIPOC master recyclers, that falls into that piece a lot. Bringing access to these resources that their community didn't have before. They love tabling, especially when they first get started, when they're new master recyclers. This is the first thing they want to do. That's the only thing they want to do. They just want to show up. They want to be told, like, start learning the messages. They don't want to take a leadership role. They're just wanting to get to know how to do this. And I think that's an important connection with the work you all do. Tabling is a way that you do outreach, and it's what gets them started and connected and growing into more leadership role. But they also start quickly then learning about all the other great events that happen, and start connecting into them and helping organize them. So they do, as Ricardo asked, do they like to, I put advisory committees here, but actually there was a lot about policy, and there was two kind of policy areas, influencing corporations by writing them and telling them that they hate that this package is not recyclable, versus like, testimony in front of council, or being on an advisory committee, or joining a green team for their community, or those kind of advisory roles. That is what I put in here. Yeah, so these are kind of the range that are best. I did a lot of talking in the focus groups about, do we have the rule right around payback? Because we're pretty strict about, it needs to be kind of educational. It needs to be creating systems rather than you schlepping or sorting. And, they like that there's some flexibility. Like if all master recyclers organize event, like PlanetCon, some of them are sorting, but they collectively are creating a system and doing some education. But if a business wanted them to sort, then they need to be more educational role, that can't just be sorting for James Recycling, for instance. And they're like, yeah, it seems about right. Sometimes I just want to sort, but you're right. This is actually a better and more important role for us to have. And again, master recyclers love being master recyclers. They feel proud. They love doing their individual projects. There's so much pride in the work that they do on their individual projects. They feel so connected in their community. They love being a resource. They love knowing stuff. And they love being a voice in there, and having a voice and being connected for the first time. And for many of the communities, has been really important to them. And so they love it. And they actually like the word master recycler in some ways, but also there's been question about the name. So but there's important issues, and this is a lot in this slide. I kept thinking that each of these can have their own slide, but these are the things that were kind of like, oh, those are things that we should chew on as a community to address. And these are things that some of them we've all heard, and some of them were kind of new ahas. So one of the things that I saw in the surveys and a bit in the focus groups is that especially new volunteers are having a very inconsistent experience. So sometimes they come in and they don't know what their role is. They'll come and table and they feel like the staff person did all the talking and I wasn't allowed to talk. And so I didn't know what was the purpose of me being there. Or I wasn't sure if I should talk, or maybe they knew all of it. And it's interesting because that was feedback I was getting early on with the mentor program, and did some training with mentors about making sure that mentors have that conversation with the trainee right away and talk about how, let's do this. The first hour, I'm going to talk and I'm going to respond to all the people who come in so that you can start getting used to the questions and how to respond. And then you and I will take turns. Just being very decisive about how you're going to do it. And so I think those kind of trainings and plans for how to work with new volunteers would be a good focus for the new program coordinator and you all to do in some of these meetings. It's just to think through, how could you be more clear in your instructions in the email that you send them when you're telling them where to show up and what to do and how to prepare, and then how to be with you on the table. And then if it's not you, if you're working with like another county staff person that doesn't work with volunteers very often, how do you prepare that staff person to be a good volunteer supporter? And so like thinking through some of that, I think would be an important thing for you all to think about. And I will say that was consistent in folks who did not identify as BIPOC and folks that did identify as BIPOC, but oftentimes it felt like a microaggression, or it was a microaggression when it was a BIPOC master cycler sitting at that table and not sure what their role is. So especially for diversity and inclusion reasons, it's important to think about your role and how it plays out and being communicative with the volunteer. And then that was the second bullet. That was a big one that there was just master cyclers are experiencing microaggression everywhere. Mostly from the community, coming to their table and not believing that they are a master recycler because they're a person of color. That's the biggest language I was hearing. But also from fellow master recyclers and from staff that's were at least one or twice mentioned for each of those groups as well. And so I think that having a serious conversation about how do you build an entire different culture so that there's a way to interrupt that microaggression when it happens out in the community, and that everybody owns that. But also, how do we make sure that everybody understands what microaggression is within the community, so that master cyclers, they pretty quickly decide to stop working with staff and fellow master cyclers and go to MROC. Not all of them, but a lot of folks said that that's why they got involved with MROC, because they didn't feel like the other places were comfortable and safe places for them to be. There's a lot of conversation about should we change our name, and actually the word master and the word recycler both were questioned. I actually think the recycler was more questioned than when the word master, but both were like, maybe there's a time to have a conversation about that. Then looking at more tools. So this one is a lot to unpack, but BIPOC master cyclers and community design master cyclers, but master cyclers in general would love to have more options and tools in their kit for doing more for their community, with possible grants, a pocket of money that they could go to that's just more loose and free that they could apply to get, sometimes easily, but also connecting to partners they don't know about so that projects that are more relevant to their community could be something they can connect them to. Adelante Mujeres had told Ricardo that they are really interested in vocational work, for instance, and trainings, and how could they bring that to their community that's focused on materials. And so, there's examples where, and also there was a lot of conversation in the focus groups about, I took community design class I loved it. I was so deep into it. I came because my community design partner believed in it. And so I came skeptical. But then when I tried to invite my community to it, I got laughed at. People were like, why should I join? I need more tools that will make it so that this experience of coming to community design is relevant to my community, and so that I can bring those tools. More support for leadership development, better shared tools for volunteer management. That came from the charrette. Like there was a lot of conversation about having like ways to all get in and share what your volunteer opportunities are and how they aren't. Communications tools. People don't read email as much as they used to, and it's really hard in community design. Even text has stopped being as helpful. Like WhatsApp is another thing so he's like, oh my gosh, there's so many tools, and it really seems like it's specific to specific communities. And so having a bigger tool shed for outreach is going to be something that needs to be addressed. And then exploring data. Alicia was asking about, is the database going to be there? We need data. I think it's worth a conversation about what data is important and what isn't, because whatever data you collect is really valuable, and yet also takes your program coordinator's time and Hans' time away from being more directly involved in the community. And so I think being more thoughtful about what data do you need to know and what do you not need to know, especially because there was a whopping 1,700 master cycler hours that master cycler said in the surveys. You know, I asked them, have you ever done volunteer work and not reported their hours? And a good 50% across the group said, yes, I've volunteered and didn't report my hours. And I then said, if you said yes, how much? 1,700 hours. That's just with the people who responded from the survey. And then when you got to BIPOC, it was actually 60%. Not Spanish language, though. It was actually 28%. So but this obviously Central Cultural is doing a great job of getting the reporting hours. But yeah, so deciding what data is important may actually affect whether people will report their hours, is my point in that. So
can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So I said data, but maybe reflecting and hearing from you, the question came up in a team meeting earlier with Paul and Genevieve and Stephanis and I earlier this morning about, like, if we want to find out if master recyclers have like tagged themselves as like being a videographer, or they are knowledgeable about and could use, you know, as a master recycler would be interested in a project using their skills of X, Y, and Z. Like, is that in the database?
No, that's a good question.
I mean, you know a lot, Lauren, because right, you know what people are doing and what they're up to and their skills and what their interests are. But yeah, I don't know if that comes out in a database.
It doesn't come in a database, and I have to say that it doesn't come as my reaction usually when people ask me, can you identify somebody who likes to do videography? I'm like, I'd rather cast it out there, because I think there's a lot of people out there that have the skill that I don't know, and also the time right now. And maybe they have the skill one time and not later, that they don't have time. And yeah, so it's sometimes best to just put it out there. We need a videography, and yeah, I did find that the activities that we're currently engaging master recyclers on are the ones they want to do. And they don't seem very interested in doing other stuff. Like yeah, during Zoom, they were like, during COVID, they weren't super interested in expanding into doing videos, or they just, but it could be, yeah. So I'm going to go back to these questions that I originally said, is that I think that during this time, as you're transitioning to Metro and you have this new program coordinator, that this would be a good time to yeah, look under the hood. Ricardo was like, I'd love to know what the actual streams of data you already have. The annual report tells you kind of what I collect all the data and report it back to you. But just looking at what data do we collect? What do we need to collect? What can we stop collecting on the, you know, but that may not be the priority question. And I would say some of the priority things that the group might want to chew on is microaggressions and volunteer management are things that you could all be working on together. But I think these, you know, maybe a quarterly meeting that focuses on coordination, building tools together, but also then deciding, do we want to take on the question of the name? How do we, you know, how do we solve that? So I want to open it up for reflections that you all have from what I just shared, or these kind of buckets, or what do you think also about how does this fit with the bigger conversation you're all having about how you meet as groups? And, you know, they're trying to break the silos out. So you're not just like, you know, business group or, you know, the CRG and CW, I'm terrible with acronyms. So all your different groups, after 13 years, I still haven't learned them. I'm not going to now.
Well,
But,
they're changing too because of the
exactly.
regional waste plans.
And that's what I'm talking about. How does this fit in with that? And how does it fit in with that? Do you see a separate meeting focused on master recyclers? You know, yeah. So that's one question, but also these questions, are these the right kind of things to focus on? And yeah.
Lauren,
Yeah,
I'm just jumping back a little bit to the other slide. Can you speak more to the Spanish language track?
Oh, yeah.
The bigger idea.
Yeah. So thank you. I missed that. Yeah, I think that ultimately we're really running into it in this last Spanish language class, where it's there. People who speak Spanish don't just live in Washington County. And Centro Cultural has been an amazing partner, as has Washington County, in developing more, as has Trash for Peace, actually, to start with it, in starting to get tools for Spanish language. But it feels so much like if we treated it much like the standard 3 county classes where we look at, there needs to be people who are in place in the counties and cities that can serve the master recyclers after they get out, that when gatherings happen, that they're bilingual, that there's actual volunteer opportunities for them to get involved with in all the counties. You know, so that's, I mean, the thing that I always say about the standard class is we shouldn't have a class if we don't have volunteer opportunities, because that's the point of a class. And I think that's true for the Spanish language as well. And I think we're now getting to a point where Clackamas and Washington County are kind of, I think we could have a class in Clackamas County and you would attract people to your county class in Spanish, and that you have some volunteer opportunities and connections in the community and staff that could serve them who are bilingual. So, you know, it's just, I'm like, eventually I think that'd be great if there was 6 county classes every year, 3 in English, 3 in Spanish, and that there were volunteer opportunities and connections and staff that connected with those, and lead staff like you all are for the program in general. So that's kind of what I see as a really big dream, obviously down the road, but we're kind of having, I mean, this group, people are popping up that want to take the class, but the English class isn't meeting their needs. So yeah. Thanks for catching that I missed that. Any other? No, that's Kate. You look like you're chomping on something. Can't hear you.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, I just had a quick clarifying question. So in the interim, who do we contact? Like, what email do you want us to use for the calendar, right? And for the newsletter? Because that is our lifeblood, right? Like that you provide for us. And so I just want to make sure that we're still able to get that stuff up for volunteers, and just wondering who you want us to bug.
Right now, I know it is a beautiful picture of Isaiah. Yes, I right now keep using Master Recycler at portlandoregon.gov, but we're really close to getting everything set up over at Metro. Hans has pretty much gotten things going with the email over there, so it'll be Master Recycler at oregonmetro.gov, but right now it's portlandoregon.gov still. I don't have access to anything over at Metro, so we need to wait until some of that technology is all set up and I actually am able to get in to the email, and Hans is too. So so it'll be Master Recycler at, and I will tell you the day when it switches from Portland to Metro. Okay. And Hans and I will be in that inbox.
Yeah, and just to jump in, sorry, I didn't mean to sound not excited about that, but I am. And I'm sorry if you mentioned this, Lauren, but if in case anyone's wondering, it seems like it'll be a fairly straightforward process of, again, the idea is to have the same email address. I don't know what else to call it. So Master Recycler, and it'll just change the domain. But seems like it'll be pretty straightforward for forwarding to get set up so that emails that end up at the Portland email get over to the Oregon domain, if that makes any sense. Just in case you have questions coming from folks on that.
Yeah, and the Oregon, the Portland email address will have a bounce back for at least 6 months that say, I think it'll even have a forwarding for 2 years. I'm still working out with that with Portland, so that if people forget and accidentally put it to Portland instead of Metro, it won't be lost in the ether. So yeah. Genevieve?
Yeah, Lauren, thanks so much. This has really brought up a lot of ideas on kind of how to grow the program. And I really appreciate kind of you sharing things that maybe some of us have not experienced, like the subject of microaggressions, like that kind of hurts to hear that there are people in the community that are doubting a trained volunteer. For topics like that, how can we, as the people supporting the master recyclers in the community, how can we go through some of those? Do you see it as we would go through the trainings to then potentially have side trainings too? Or can you talk a little bit more about that? I'd like to dig into it.
Yeah. Thank you, Genevieve. I appreciate you digging at that. I've been digging at it for a while. I think it's important to, yes, as a group, everyone get on the same page with you all about just, you're not gonna be on the same page, but understanding what microaggression is, and making sure that if you have other staff that are working with master recyclers, that they understand what it is and and how to interrupt it. But also, the Master Recycler Handbook has cultural competency, a chapter in it that was helped designed and created by BIPOC folks and leaders, and as well as master recyclers. And it's a great chapter, but bringing it into the classroom has been threatening to BIPOC master recyclers. They don't feel like it's a safe space for them to have a conversation about cultural competency in the classroom. I think that one, yes, you all getting some training or learning and wherever you are in your stages, but then also just starting to go. So one of the things we did with the Fix It Fair one year is to audit every single thing we do at the Fix It Fair. And with the lens of how do we make it a safe and inviting place for BIPOC and people who speak a language other than English. And we literally audited from the minute they walk into the door, from the outreach that we do, just like look at it from a full lens. And could we put something on the table that says, this is a safe environment for, we don't, we want this. I mean, just so that somebody comes to the table, sees that, then they'll see that we are already putting a bubble here that says it's not okay for you to be a jerk to my volunteer. I mean, and that's a subtle microaggression that they're experiencing. There was definitely feedback that is sometimes not as subtle as them not believing them. And some felt, especially right as COVID was happening, some of the Asian master recyclers were getting attacked. So we need to make it a safe space for them to be, in such a public and difficult setting. And so I think that auditing it and working together and collectively deciding we are going to tackle this. Maybe we'll have to try some things. Obviously, work really closely with BIPOC master recyclers for feedback. Because my reaction was like, well, I'm going to teach about microaggressions in the class. Well, I'm not the first person that should be thinking about whether that feels safe or not. I need to find out if BIPOC master recyclers feel safe with that conversation. So Ricardo got your hand up.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just wanted to emphasize something, that there is no such thing as a safe space. We can only provide because you don't know what's going to happen. So you're failing them, you're elevating their hopes to something that it's not attainable. One of the things that we have to remember as well is a lot of people, and I include my white colleagues who identify as women, they too get ignored sometimes. It's like they ask the same question to someone who is at the table, and then they ask a man, because men are supposed to know about repair, and I have no idea of that. So I think it's the idea of perhaps if there were some collective area where we can put in like best practices, best known practices, best examples that we have experienced, the participation as to what is a role. As a former teacher, one of the things that I do is like, I treat them like my children, like my school children. So it's like, I am the one who's going to be the face of that, and not being, it's like, what is the level of commitment that one has when you're tabling with a volunteer who feels threatened or, subject to microaggressions? So it's like, you have to be able to catch it. You have to be able to go on, and you have to be able to say that, naming conventions are the most damaging. It's like, oh, it's too difficult for me, so I'll say it this way. It's like, you have to be able to say that. So I think if there were that collaborative space, it'll allow us to see something that, oh shoot, I hadn't thought of that. The way I put the table is not inviting, or something like that, something that we've seen, so because a lot of us have that experience in the field. So I think it's that, and also recognizing how much we can do, and to what level, and what it is that they need to have as well. So I think it's something that we can start collaborating on. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah, one of the questions that I asked in the survey is, have you had a negative experience while being a master recycler? And then if so, did you know what to do about it? And the folks who said, no, yes, I had a negative experience, I think the folks that felt most negative didn't feel equipped to respond. And so maybe just even doing some training for the master recyclers, because yes, you're right, they're going to experience negative experiences. And even folks who just like come up and say recycling's no good, I just throw it all away, because that hurts master recyclers a lot. And so, and equipping them to understand these are common things you might hear. Here's ways you can respond, so that you already give them some power to respond to it. And same with some microaggression things. Yeah, Megan.
Yeah, thanks everyone for bringing this up. I think that interrupting in the moment when it's coming from the public is super challenging. And I think that just getting resources from the group collectively would be super helpful because it always feels like it comes out of the blue, and sometimes it's just so shocking. It's hard to know what to say. And I'm saying that as a white person, so just interesting to, hear the feedback from master recyclers who have experienced it as well, and any ways that we can help support, I think would be really helpful.
Another reason that I'm super excited that Darwin is the manager of this program is this is a specialty of his and has been working a lot with Metro and on cultural competency within the Bureau and within the government. And so can help the program coordinator with some resources on that.
Yeah, I'll just add, we have two standard courses, like a microaggressions 101 class and then a more advanced class. The more advanced class is interrupting microaggressions at Metro. That is a agency-wide training that's kind of just offered every year, multiple times. So that's definitely something the new master recycler coordinator can take. And I can definitely chat with my friends and colleagues in our DEI department to see if we can extend that to our partners, so that any of you who feel the need to take that training can take it as well. Yeah, and I've taken both of those, and the one thing that really stuck out for me in that second one is with the interrupting, that depending on the situation, right? Checking in with that person who's being hurt, right? And saying, can I help? Would you like me to step in? Right? Because a lot of times us stepping in can blow up the situation, and then they're the ones who are going to take the fall of it. So it's really tricky. Anyway, there's so many variables involved, but anyway, I walked away from both of those trainings feeling a lot better equipped, because anyway, we all have our kind of go-to reaction to some of those things, and I realized that some of my go-to reactions could actually make the situation worse. Yeah.
Alicia, you got your hand up.
Yeah, this is just kind of in the class question. 20 years ago, when I took the master recycler class, there was this part of it was like how to table, and we'd like practice tabling, like don't stand, don't sit, don't stand behind, like go out, like engage with people. And is that part of it anymore? Like that's like role play, I guess it is. Do you still role play?
Yeah, in a number of different ways.
Okay, yeah, I figured, but like, I know it's so basic with the fact that I remember that from 20 years ago, like, don't just sit there and have them come to you, like do some engagement and things like that. And as someone who can often be defensive, I've definitely been on the side of someone thinking they know more than me about this topic, and trying to find, and this is just my experience, right? Like that, not even humor, but being a little bit like the challenge. They're challenging me and the knowledge that I'm trying to share because they've asked me a question or said something that is false, and I'm trying to correct them because I do, know more in this instance or something like that. And so how to interact in those ways, I think, is super useful and different, as part of the course, but also as like contact people at jurisdictions and being welcoming, and maybe I've talked in the class, so you know who I am, but we don't have a relationship yet. But to know that, like, I'm one of the city of Portland people who are going to help them through their volunteer experience or something like that. So that's something we can, at BPS, we can talk more about, and how to make them feel both more welcoming, but also that we can be a resource for them moving forward. So
yeah,
lots to think about. This is really good though to hear. And I'm like Genevieve, I'm sad to hear about those experiences, of course, too. So.
And if I may just say one last thing real quick. You mentioned how proud they are about being a master recycler, particularly for community design and BIPOC communities. We are foreigners. We don't look like the majority or the network of people who are going to receive some of our information. So it is always, we lack credibility. But that badge that says that you're a master recycler is very important for them, because it allows them to be able to have that the next level of interaction. So it's like we need to continue doing that and making sure that there's a transition. If it's broken, if it's damaged, that we're willing to replace it no matter what, because it's quite important.
Yeah, absolutely. Always.
Yeah, I like the badges that you've also let them choose what they want on it, the pronouns or just first name, or people are really like you. It's been great.
Anything else? So what do you think? Oh, hi, John. Good to see you. Pops up.
Hey, everyone. Sorry to drop in. Just juggling a lot of meetings today, but I've been listening into the conversation, and I think this is wonderful and so important. So much great work has taken place with Master Recycler, and I've seen a lot of transitional elements over these last few years, which have been super exciting. And I'm really enthusiastic about kind of what's next too, and being able to have this amazing program and to continue to see it evolve and meet the needs of our diverse and ever-changing communities across the region. And so I just have to share a huge kudos to Lauren, for pulling this meeting together. And I'm gonna watch the recording. And I'm also a big appreciation for Darwin and being willing to take on the role of managing this program as it transitions into Metro, which I think is gonna be a huge lift for him and his team, but a really exciting opportunity to align some of the programming and some of the work that's been done to date. And I'm also super thrilled to be working with all of you as we continue to engage and move forward. And so just the conversation has been really powerful. And so I just had to share that because I was getting kind of amped up. So thanks.
All right. So do we agree that a regular meeting, like a quarterly meeting for a couple hours would be about right? Okay. And that they focus on maybe 1 hour on some kind of training and or something like that on volunteer coordination or something like that, and 1 hour on how can we work better collectively or something. It can move around too. I mean, like in January might be event planning, because that's usually when you start thinking about your season. And Megan, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it would be really cool to dedicate part of the meeting to specific groups, like learn about MROC or learn about the Spanish group and Clackamas County, because I don't know very much about all the different kinds of master recycler eddies, I think you called them earlier.
Yeah.
But definitely curious and want to see what we can replicate in East County too.
Yes. I think that's one thing that's fun is that, I think that Gresham and Wilsonville, and there's just some keys that are like wanting to get more, I think, connected and so I think that'd be great to do. And what's the one that's past Gresham that wants to, Troutdale, he's starting to want to get involved. So yeah, for sure, could invite some more to the meetings too. Good. Okay. Yeah.
Can I just chime in really quick? I don't know where it's going to land, and I don't think Metro staff, maybe nobody knows yet, but there's a lot of after post-charrette around what's happening in the future in this next fiscal year. And I was on the charrette advisory group, and we have a meeting on Friday to talk about some stuff. But it's looking like there'll be groups of people meeting probably quarterly, depends on the type of group. And as that kind of figures itself out, finding the time, because a lot of us will be on that group or in this group, and just the nature of our work, figuring out a schedule, obviously TBD, but I think just to be aware, like there's going to be probably a lot of quarterly meetings that could be in different months in the quarter.
Yeah.
But especially with Washington County going first in the fall with a new coordinator and a new thing, it may be nice to then check in with Ricardo and staff there, like, how's it going? Would you know, all those like best practices and sharing of what's working and all that with the new coordinator will be useful. I think there's definitely a lot for all of us to continue figuring out together. So, but I'm really into the collaboration. I think everybody knows. Don't want to reinvent the wheel. So
I I was looking at the work plan. I created kind of a work plan for the next year for the Master Recycle program, because there's some things that just aren't things they're going to decide. The classes are usually this life, you know, and these are when events happen in the season. So it'd be pretty easy for me to kind of look for chunks of time where a gathering, a meeting could happen, and could just get them on calendars before it goes, just to get it going. Maybe Hans will get them on because my email won't work anymore if I send it. But yeah, so we could send it off. So yeah, would that be helpful to just get it on your calendar right away, so that
yeah, because then we can always change, you know, make changes as needed if needed. But I think it's good to get it on there.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. The new person may be something that's somebody who's very entrenched in the programs already and will not have as big a learning curve, but they may not even. I came in saying, I've never really cared about recycling very much, and I'm here because I'm a community organizer, and I think that's the tool I can bring to you. And so, you know, if you have somebody like that come in, then there's a learning curve that they're going to have. So yeah, then they're going to bring some other amazing tools that you might want to shift towards, you know. So yeah, you'll want to change things. I'm not trying to set them in stone, but just giving some guidance and some structure for them to react to, so that they know what they're doing. Yeah. Oh, Kate won't be there. I'm seeing reactions. So yeah, John and Hans, I think you missed, but Portland has decided to have a going away retirement party, and on July 8th in Mount Tabor for me. So invite folks at Metro. I'll send an email to you, and you can share it with Metro folks. So yeah.
I will also add, I'm going to miss it. I'm sad about that, but I'm hoping that we have an alternative for those who can't make the July 8th. Because I know Kate's going to be sad about that, and I know Ariane is unavailable as well. So
maybe the alternative can include
dancing,
Cosmos, or what's your favorite drink? Lemon.
Oh, mine?
Yeah.
Well, at home it's margaritas, because I make the best margaritas in
yeah,
town.
I mean,
but
come on.
We could have it in my backyard sometime.
See,
no, but
we'll have to do it.
Yeah.
But I like lemon drops when I go out.
Lemon drops and salsa.
Ricardo.
I think it's kind of ironic that we're doing this going away party or retirement party for you at Mount Tabor, and I think you shared to me that when you applied for this position, you had interviewed in the top of a mountain, Guatemala.
Yes, a temple. That's true.
I remember
Go back
that
to the
story.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't get a signal down where I was staying, so I had to get up on the top of temple number 2 in Tikal in order to get a signal for my second interview for the job.
Started at the top and she ends at the top.
Does everybody know Stephanus? He just popped in there. Have you all met him? Okay. Good. Well, I guess I want to wrap up by just thanking you all. It's been an incredible ride to work with you all, and you've been so deeply committed and supportive of this amazing pool of master recyclers and volunteers. And I really appreciate that you get that they're what it's about, that it is about deepening diversity and engagement and the deep reach into the community, and that you are committed to it. And I just appreciate I know that this new phase and this transition will be a lift for you all. But I know you're excited and up for it, and we'll greet this new coordinator with the great support that you've already given me and Master Recyclers. So I just want to thank you, and can't wait to party with you on the 8th if you can make it. So any last thoughts? Okay.
Will you share, are you going to share more with all of us? It sounds like it, all the research and stuff.
Yeah, so I'll I guess I'll put this recording. I might just send the link instead of putting on YouTube. I don't know. We'll see how. And then yeah, so all this, I have all of the SurveyMonkey stuff. I need to get it all into some way that is it all, man. It'll probably be you having to sift through some of it. I'm not going to probably organize it very well because I'm running out of time. But yeah, so that, what else? Oh, I'll also, I have some notes. I had a couple Master Recycler mentors synthesize the focus group focus group. So that's in good shape to share back to. Yeah, I think that's what I got to share. Oh, and I can also share my draft work plan that I sent to Darwin and Hans. It's just, you know, a suggested thing. The new coordinator may blow it out of the water if they're like, I don't like any of this. But I would hope they work with you on that. But I think it's pretty much reflects what we just talked about for the next year. So down into some nitty gritty detail. Sound good? Okay. Yay. Thank you, everyone. I know
Thanks,
you're all
Lauren.
super busy. It
Lauren.
was a good 2 hours.
Lauren.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Lauren.
Ciao.
Bye.